While some of this carcinogen excretion stuff is somewhat new, the general anti-cancer properties of glucosinolates and their metabolites, isothiocyanates, are pretty well established, which is one reason why many studies looking into the effects of cruciferous vegetables specifically look at cancer incidence. What's interesting, however, is the effect cruciferous vegetables have on cardiovascular risk factors. Remember that study I mentioned earlier that showed a 22% reduction in all-cause mortality for the highest quintile of cruciferous vegetable consumption? It turns out the reduced risk of death was mostly associated with reduction in death from cardiovascular disease, which is still the #1 killer in the United States, which may be surprising since we spent so much time talking about the number of cancer studies floating around out there. In fact, multiple studies have found that people that eat a higher quantity of cruciferous vegetables have a lower risk of cardiovascular disease, heart attack, and stroke compared to those with a lower intake. But better still is actually measuring the strength of this effect. One study in people with type 2 diabetes showed that it's possible to actually drive real changes in biomarkers that are predictive of future heart disease. Supplementing with 10 grams of broccoli sprout powder per day, which comes out to about 40 milligrams of sulforaphane and is probably comparable to around 100 grams fresh weight for 4 weeks, lowered their serum triglyceride by 18.7% and lowered oxidized LDL ratio by 13.5%. Overall, this reduced trial participants' atherogenic index by just over 50%, which is a measure of cardiovascular disease that incorporates a wide variety of factors. Not to mention, they also had a nearly 20% drop in fasting blood sugar, which is a pretty darn good thing if you're a type 2 diabetic. Other studies using fresh sprouts, but with a similar effective dose of sulforaphane, have also demonstrated anti-atherogenic effects. There are likely multiple mechanisms by which sulforaphane and cruciferous vegetables in general positively affect cardiovascular health. One of the most important ones goes back to the genetic pathway we mentioned earlier, the same one responsible for activating those phase 2 detoxification enzymes, which is NRF2. And that is because NRF2 activates antioxidant genes, it activates anti-inflammatory genes, it deactivates inflammatory genes, which all affect cardiovascular health. Sulforaphane has been shown in rat studies to increase antioxidant activity and glutathione expression in endothelial cells that line the blood vessels. It also relaxes smooth muscle cells. Additionally, sulforaphane appears to be able to reduce adhesive molecules that are a part of the atherogenic state that drives heart disease, such as E-selectin, which is a cell adhesion molecule expressed only in endothelial cells and activated by inflammatory cytokines. Studies like these ultimately help give us some insights into what might be happening at a mechanistic level to drive these larger associations at a population level that are being seen between reductions in heart disease risk and consumption of cruciferous vegetables.